So I'm now going to talk to you about the trust cycle, which can be applied to attachment theory. And this cycle demonstrates how children develop trust by having their different needs met. What a child is dependent on is that their needs will be met in a consistent way and in a concept known as good enough care. So the parent or the key person will meet needs in a consistent and reliable way for the child. So what you can see here is the term child has need arousal, and what is meant by this is that babies, and particularly those children under 2, will often communicate through different forms of crying to indicate a need. For example, a cry to indicate hunger, a cry to indicate the need to sleep, a cry to indicate the need to be changed or to be snuggled and cuddled. And so the child will usually cry and they will look for a caregiver, usually a trusted caregiver, and what they're hoping will happen is that in an appropriate time frame that need will be met. And once that need is met by the key person, by the parent, the child can then relax, and this whole cycle is known as an arousal and relaxation cycle. And so the way the theory goes is that if a child exists in this arousal and relaxation cycle, they start to develop a pattern of thinking that their trusted caregiver will meet their needs within a set time frame. Over time, what you should start to notice is when you provide that consistent or that good enough care, the child starts to be able to wait longer periods. They start to build up a resilience, because what they learn in their mind is when I have a need, somebody comes along eventually and meets it. And so it really builds up that trust, that resilience, and that regulation of emotion for a young child. What we do know is that this cycle doesn't always go to plan for young children, and it can go askew at different levels. So for example, the primary caregiver, the parent, may not meet those needs consistently for a number of different contextual factors. The parent may not have a good knowledge of parenting. They may be suffering some form of depression, postnatal depression for example. They may be experiencing other adverse factors which actually prohibits them from being able to meet that arousal and relaxation cycle. Similarly, for a child that goes into nursery, they may be in a nursery where there is a high turnover of staff. The key person may change frequently, and what you've got to imagine is if a child has a need and they have a different member of staff, a different key person meeting those needs each day, it's very unlikely that they're going to be met in the same way and within the same time frame. So when this trust cycle is happening, what occurs for the child is that they go, I have a need, but nobody meets it, or they don't meet it in a set time frame. So imagine being hungry and waiting for a very long period of time. What then happens for the child is they build up a lot of stress, and exposure to prolonged stress for young children leads to toxic stress, which can be really difficult for them to manage in the long term. And so that trust cycle is broken. It's really important that the trust cycle is used to support people to develop good enough caregiving. So it isn't about blame to parents or to key people. It's a reminder that if needs are met in a consistent time frame, then that is going to build children's trust, which is going to support them to develop a healthy attachment style, which will help them in their later education, life and social experiences.